Okay. Erev Tov, we're in Mesillas Yesharim, Perek Vav. That's on the Midah of Zrizos, ALACRITY. And he's in the middle of explaining what it is. This whole Perek is Bebei or Midas Zrizos, then he's going to go on to its parts and how to acquire it and how to watch out for the pitfalls. So far he explained that Hagdara, the definition of Zrizos, is to do the mitzvah as soon as possible. It's the opposite of procrastination. ALACRITY, to do it right away. He doesn't talk about noticing it. Even after he's talking about a person does notice it. He knows the mitzvah's there, but he figures he'll do it later. He procrastinates, and Chiddush Shiv, as Rizos tells us to do it as soon as possible, and he brings reasons why it's necessary to have this midah of Rizos. So he says that first of all there's Yetzer Hara, there's evil inclination that's trying to grab it away from you, and just don't think the Yetzer Hara is only out to trip you up yet. You should do an Avera. He's also trying to grab away the opportunity to do mitzvahs. The second thing is that the person is naturally lazy. He's Afri Sachamri Gas, and he doesn't like to exert himself. It's an effort to exert himself, and it's overturning his natural state of being, that he has to become swift, and a person is naturally heavy. And the combination of these two things together make the problem. That if he would be able to be heavy and come back eventually when he does, and the thing is still there, okay, might be a chisaron, but he'll get there. But that the fact that somebody's taking it away, there's competition. The Yetzer Hara is trying to get him away from it, so he has to make sure he does it right away. He brings the psukim in Mishlei that the Shlomo Melech is very marich, very elaborate about the issue of laziness, and he says a few points of why it's so dangerous. One is that it's passive. It's not an active evil, it's a passive evil, and people don't see that as being so bad. Sheval Taseh. And he brings the pasuk that says, Gam misrapeh b'molachto achu lebal mashche. It's also the person who's lax in his work is also a brother. He means he's close and related to the destroyer. Even though he's not doing anything evil actively, the fact that he's doing it passively is also going to have the same results. We gave the mashal of the person who didn't push his fellow man off the cliff, but he was responsible to make sure that the gate is strong, and he didn't. He was lax in his responsibility, and someone fell off. He leaned on the fence and he fell off. So even though it was a passive negligence, but the results are the same. So that's one reason that people don't see it, because it's only passive. And the second point he says is that it's a very slow process. It accumulates from a lot of small things. And he gives a mashal that Shlomo Melech says about that Shlomo Melech says he passed by the field and the vineyard of a lazy man, and he saw how it was full of thorns and thistles, and the gate was broken down, etc. And he took a lesson to himself. He took a lesson from it, that a person who thinks that he's going to just take a little dremel and snooze and come back, eventually he's going to be taken over by the mishalech, that the lack is going to come like a traveler, and the loss is the poverty, and the loss is going to come like a armed man. That the person who doesn't proactive, take care of himself, so then passively and without noticing, the Ishmael gain, the soldier, is going to take hold of him, and he's not going to get out of his clutches. And he brings the whole talich that the Gemara brings down, that one evil brings another. He brings a whole list of about I don't remember the number, but it talks about that first he doesn't study. Because he doesn't study, so then when he does come to study, he doesn't know how to make sense out of it. Because of that, he doesn't understand, and then when he comes to have an action, to do something, to paskin something, he's going to take it out of his own learning, which is going to be wrong, and then he's going to he's going to transgress the halacha, and first get the yishchana nachash. The whole talich, he says it's like the venom of a snake, that it spreads slowly, and he doesn't have control over it until it's too late. If he'd realize right away, he might be able to save himself, but he doesn't realize until it's too late. So too, the atzlus, the laziness is something that spreads, and he doesn't realize it. So the first point he said was that it's sheval taseh. Second one is that it's ma'at without noticing it. It goes slowly without noticing it. So we're up to about the second half of Perek 6, and it starts in the paragraph Hinei Anachnu Ro'im Maybe still a little past. It says past the second. I would say 1, 2, 3, 4. More or less halfway. He's going to come now to say another difficulty of overcoming laziness. We see in our eyes many times with our own eyes. A person already realizes his obligation, and he knows what is proper, what is fitting for him to do in order to save himself, what's necessary in order to save himself, and what is Hashem holding him responsible for. And still doesn't do it. Even though he knows this is what he's supposed to do, he has no question about this is the right thing to do, he still doesn't do it. Not because he doesn't recognize the obligation, not because of any other reason, only because the heaviness of laziness overpowers him. He says, I'll eat a little bit, I'll sleep a little bit. He's procrastinating because he doesn't want to exert himself. He has asked me to get out of my house. I already undressed, how could I dress again? It's too hot, it's too cold, it's raining. And all the other excuses and pretenses that the mouths of the lazy are full of them. So this is a new issue, another point, that there are excuses. If a person would realize his lack, let's say a person gets angry, so usually he realizes that he's an angry person. Or if he's jealous, he realizes that he's jealous. Any bad midah, he's arrogant, he realizes that he's arrogant. Any bad attribute, usually a person realizes that he has it, then that might arouse him one day to work on it. But laziness has a camouflage that he finds excuses. He excuses his laziness by trying to explain that he's not being lazy. He excuses himself. He finds excuses. Yeah. What they call tirutzim. He's finding excuses, and he doesn't realize that he's really being lazy. The fact that he has amsalos, he has these excuses and pretenses, so he thinks there's really a problem. There's some reason why he can't do it. He's supposed to go, let's say, out to the Beis Medrash, but it's raining. He might catch a cold, and it's dangerous, and whatever it might be. He doesn't have enough sleep. He might become sick also. He has excuses. The excuses are camouflaging his real problem. His real problem is that he's lazy. So he's having the Mesillas Yesharim seems to be helping us with being able to find the truth. And people don't realize that they're lazy. He says, first of all, people don't look at it so bad because it's only passive, not active. Second of all, the fact that it's a slow process. It doesn't happen all at once. It's a result of a lot of procrastinating. It doesn't happen all at one shot. The result is not noticeable until the end. And the third thing is that there's camouflaged with many excuses. So he doesn't realize that he has a problem, that really he's lazy. He doesn't see the facts. He doesn't see the bad character trait that he has. And in the process, he's not studying Torah, he's not serving Hashem, avodas Hashem, and he's going to forsake his Creator. Forsaking his Creator in the context of the Mesillas Yesharim doesn't mean to say that he's going to become a sinner, but it means that he's not actively serving Hashem. The whole subject of the Sefer is avodas Hashem, how to serve Hashem in a way that he says avodat mima, chasidus, all different levels of avodas Hashem. And a person is not going to be involved in avodas Hashem because he's been running away from his responsibility. This is what Shlomo is referring to in Koheles. Till now he quoted Pasuk in Mishlei. Now he says in Koheles, a different Pasuk, that because of laziness, the roof is going to lower. It means the roof is sinking in, because the laziness of the person with the balabais is supposed to be taking care of it. Because of the holding low his hands. The person is not active. He's not going to exert himself in order to fix the roof. So then it's going to start dripping and a leak. That's the way that Koheles describes the atzal time, the laziness. So you find that both in Mishlei and in Koheles, where it talks about the evil results that happen from a person who doesn't do his responsibility by pushing it off, procrastinating, excuses, and not realizing that it's a venom that's passing through. Now he comes to say that he doesn't realize that his excuses, the same point, he's still continuing, that a person doesn't realize that his excuses are not real. He thinks that the excuses are true. He's fooling himself. If you ask him, if you challenge the lazy person, about what he's doing, how he's losing out on life, he'll come to you with many statements of Chazal and psukim from the Tanakh and even Svara, on all three fronts, from the Torah, from the Chachamim, from reasoning. All of these things are showing him, according to his mistaken reasoning, that he should be able to take it easy and to leave him in his laziness. So it doesn't mean to say that he has proof from Chazal he's supposed to be lazy. Surely there's no place where it says such a thing. It doesn't mean that. Not from Chazal, and not from the Psukim, and not from the Svara. But it means to say that he always has proofs for his excuses. It means he can back up his excuses. His excuses will be backed up by Torah sources and reasoning. But that's really, he doesn't realize that whole time is only an excuse. He's wrong because he doesn't understand that the whole issue is only an excuse. That's not the real thing that's bothering him. The real thing is that he doesn't want to exert himself. It doesn't realize that all of these claims that he's making towards himself are not because of his sound, balanced reasoning. It's coming forth from the source of his laziness. It's all because he's lazy. Because he's lazy, he's inventing all of these excuses until he convinces himself. He's fooling himself. And after a while, he starts believing himself. He starts believing that's really the problem. But really, if he'd really know the truth, he would realize that it's all to cover up on his laziness. Because the laziness is overpowering, it inclines his seichel to those claims. But it's not really logical. It's not logical. It's not rational. He doesn't listen to the voice of the wise. People who are wise are telling him that it's not true. But he doesn't listen to them, and he considers himself smarter than everybody else. Not because he really. There's a few. It's interesting in Mishlei, he brings the pasuk coming up. Right away it says, "That's what Shlomo screams and says, Chacham atzel be'einav b'shiva meshivei tam." The atzel, the lazy man, is smarter in his own eyes than 7 wise people. Rabbi Avrohom Citrin, he just describes the scenario. You have the lazy man lying in bed, and 7 chachamim surrounding his bed, explaining him all the good reasons to get up, and he thinks he's smarter than all of them. So it's interesting that in Mishlei there is such a thing called the Chacham Be'einav. There's a bad midah, there's a bad character trait called the Chacham Be'einav. He thinks he's smart, and he doesn't really judge himself correctly. But here it says Chacham Atzel Be'einav. So it means that's a different kind of a midah. This is, he's smart in his eyes because of his aslas. There might be because of his laziness. It might be a person who really doesn't know how to judge himself, and he thinks maybe it's gaiva, maybe it's arrogance, other kind of sources where it might cause himself to think that he's smarter than he really is. But here, he wouldn't have that problem. It's only because of his laziness that forces him to conjure up this excuse by thinking that and then he backs up the excuse with his logic and sources that he'll get. He doesn't realize that it's just a cover up. It's just to cover up his laziness. He doesn't want to exert himself. In order to do that, he has to invent some excuse, and even though people are telling him it doesn't make sense, he's still going to go with it. The laziness doesn't let him even worry, to even take a possibility. Maybe those other people are right. He doesn't consider their opinion. He thinks he's the only one who knows. Everybody else is mistaken, and shotim, a nice word for shotim. Foolish. And he alone is wise. So again, the problem here is not that he really thinks that he's wise. If he would be in a situation where he doesn't have to exert himself, he would know who's smarter than him. But when it comes to having to exert himself, he has no choice. He has to realize that he's smarter himself. He has no choice because he doesn't want to exert himself. So he's going to conjure these excuses and then rely on his own opinion more than everybody else. So to sum up what he said so far, the different difficulties of overcoming laziness, one point he said was that first he explains the matzav, the situation that man is, the state of man is a problem. Because Hashem made it so, but in order man should be able to overcome it. But it's a state of a problem because, first of all, there's the Yetzer Hara that's trying to compete with him to get the mitzvahs, and also his nature, by nature man is lazy, he's heavy. The guf is heavy. Rabbi Avrohom once said, like, the neshama is fiery. The neshama, the soul, wants to do, but the guf is like afar. Afar chumri is gas. So the body, the soul, the animal soul, the animal part of him is very dead, very heavy. And the combination of these two things causes the problem. The fact that there's the Yetzer Hara that's competing for the mitzvah, and also the man is heavy. Then he goes on to say difficulties of realizing the danger of laziness. I've got one is sheval tasa, that is passive. He doesn't see it being so bad. And the second one is that it's a slow process which doesn't have immediate effects, so he doesn't realize the effect since it's a slow process. And the third one is that is camouflaged by many excuses, and he gets to believe the excuses. Since he has a way of covering up, he doesn't realize that his real problem, the problem is really his laziness. But since he has so many excuses, he doesn't realize that.
Another day.
But tomorrow's another day. Is that the excuse?
Yeah, for sure it is. Most of the time.
Means there's no reason to do it today. I can do it tomorrow.
Or there's no reason to have to finish it today. No, I do it. I do it. I may not, So those people are holding there, they a lot more Nisayan than I do. So I'll get the Nisayan and I'll get there. I don't know, I think it's...
So at this point it seems that it wouldn't help us. There's no remedy of telling him that these are just excuses, because he's so into it, he's so believing himself, he's already fooled, that if you're going to argue on the excuses, you're going to lose. Like you said, Shiva Chacham Atzal Beinam Shiva Meshivei Tam. At this point, the solution is not going to be to argue with him in the rationale of his excuses. That's not going to be the pitaron. You have to go to the shorish. You have to go to take away the laziness, and then once he's not going to have that disease of laziness, he himself will be able to see that those are only excuses. But as long as he has the shorish, the root of his laziness is still there, then the excuses are backed up by his laziness, and you can't argue with him. So therefore, the Mesillas Yesharim at this point is not going to tackle the excuses. He's going to try to tackle the laziness itself.
The issue itself.
What is that?
The issue itself.
The issue itself. And then the excuses will melt away by themselves. It's an interesting point. If we're understanding it right, it means that by other bad attributes, a person doesn't cover it up. He doesn't, maybe, I'm just suggesting that's what the Sefer seems to be saying, that the main issue of excuses is by laziness. Over there, the person brings in all of his excuses in order to cover up, and he doesn't even realize that he's being lazy. He doesn't want to admit to himself that he's lazy, just plain lazy. No big lumdus. He just doesn't want to exert himself. But by other bad midos, it's more open. He realizes that he should realize that he's angry or arrogant or jealous. He sees the facts in front of him, but by laziness, he doesn't want to admit to himself that he's lazy. He's going to find excuses to cover up, and then he won't even realize that he's lazy.
Why won't he admit he's lazy? Would be obvious.
What?
Why would a person not admit he's lazy? If someone's lazy, they know it. No?
I don't know why it's difficult, but it seems that there's a special evil inclination that he'll find excuses to cover it up. He'd rather, instead of saying I'm just lazy, he'd rather find excuses to cover up and explain away his laziness. Maybe I don't know why is that so.
I don't have a problem being lazy. I know I'm lazy.
There could be social pressures.
I don't need any excuses. I know I'm lazy.
Social pressures.
I don't know, and I don't do it because I'm lazy.
Mm-hmm. I think that it's much better that way. If a person sees the facts and he sees himself, that's surely a better madrega than a person who is covering up.
Right.
There's in general, that always would be better that a person should, if he has some kind of a deficiency, he should notice the deficiency and be masking and put it on the table than a person who's going to cover up. Many times it's there will be sometimes people justify themselves and then they're not able to fix up the problem because they're in the justification. But
I don't justify myself and again fix the problem.
Because it's too lazy to.
I don't know. My wife was away for 2 months. All the jobs that she gave me, I did the day before she came. I knew it all along.
Yeah, I do that too.
So those are the three things
That's
that he.
not lazy. That's a good husband.
Those seem to be the 3 points that he said. The difficulty of laziness more than other things is that it's passive, and that it's a slow process, and that it's camouflaged. He says you should know this is a general rule that's been tested, a tested rule in the issue of precious. Precious usually the translation is abstinence, which is not the subject here. We're not into abstinence at all. It seems to be a very general word. He doesn't mean precious. That's going to be talked about later on. Abstinence. It's not his subject, or at least not now. Maybe this is fast forwarding. This next paragraph, I think that this paragraph we're learning now is not really the issue of zrizus that we're holding now. He's just telling you that in the long run, the long end of zrizus is eventually might come to precious. The same way he told us by Zehirus that the far end is going to come to Yiras Chet, which is the end of the Sefer. But I think that whatever he's going to say now in this coming paragraph, he's not asking us to do it at this point. When a person is only up to the level of zrizus, I don't think he's asking him to do what he's going to say. He's just projecting into the future. A person who's on a higher madrega, he's going to say how extreme it could become in a good way. And he's just telling us to learn from whatever we could take into our level here. What does he say? That by the people who are precious, shekol kula tzricha b'dika, every leniency has to be checked out. That means whenever a person is being easy on himself, there are two choices how to go. One of them is easy, one of them is difficult. So the klal is, if it's easy, check it out. It could be that it's not really your real choice. It's only because you don't want to do it. Because it's easier.
Be wary of the easy part.
Right. Be choshed. Be suspect yourself that you're choosing it. You think it's right because it's easier. Mm-hmm. So this is a very high madrega. I think before I started saying maybe I got mixed up. I said that it doesn't mean precious as doesn't mean abstinence. I would take it back. It does mean abstinence, but he's not telling you to do abstinence at this point. He's not telling you at this point of zrizus to practice abstinence. That's going to be later on. He just wants to fast forward to see a person who's holding on the level of abstinence, that any leniency he'll suspect himself. Maybe it's because he'll suspect himself. Maybe it's only because he doesn't want to exert himself. That's why he's saying that this is the right choice. But really, deep down, it's because he doesn't want to exert. It could be, it isn't always that the difficult way is the right path. It could be that the right path is the easier one, even though it could be. But it's very likely it could be that it's just the advice of the evil inclination and it's deceit that he wants to make it easier for you. So because he knows that it's hard for people to exert themselves, so he tells them this is the right way. So on the level of precious, not on the level of zrizus, but on the level of abstinence, a person will suspect himself of every leniency. Whenever there's an easier way out, and he thinks that that's the right thing to do, he would double check. It doesn't mean he would always take the difficult way. It could be that the easier way is the right way to do it. But since it has easier, it's easier on the guf, so it could be that the guf is the one who's telling him to take it easy, and he'll find justification in doing that. There's a story. It's not exactly this idea, but I think they say it about Napoleon. I don't know if it's true. I think the story goes about Napoleon that he was in the camp, and in the army camp, and he was in his tent, and he got thirsty in the morning, in the middle of the night. In the middle of the night, he got thirsty. So he could have called the servant, whatever, but he thought that he should get a drink of water. Then he said, no. He was debating if he should get the water or not. Should he get up in the cold? Should he go to get the water? So on one hand, he thought that if I'm going to get the water, I'm giving in to my physical desires. Like Napoleon can't stand up against a little thirst. So maybe I shouldn't go. But then he said, maybe it's because I'm lazy. Maybe I'm just justifying myself not to get the water by saying that I'm going to be a Porush because I'm really lazy. So he got up and got the water, came back and didn't drink it. He wanted to make sure that he's not justifying himself because because of his laziness. So I'm not saying that that's the klal over here, but the point is that the laziness of man is able to give him all kinds of justifications. So that's his point. Kol kula tzricha b'dika. Any leniency has to be checked out. I'm not saying to check it out by doing Napoleon's way, but to check it out, to think it through, to ask somebody else, to recheck. Because since the guf is always looking out to be easier on itself, so you have to suspect that maybe that's the source of your shikul adas. Maybe the reason why you decided so, that this is the right thing to do, is only because you're taking it easy on yourself. That's why you have to investigate and check it out. If after you checked it out and the easier of the two possibilities seems to be right, okay, so go for it, that's the right one. We're not saying that always the harder one is the right decision, but be choshesh, be suspect. So this paragraph, I would say that these 6 lines is not coming to tell you the level of zrizos, it's coming to tell you the level of precious. He's just projecting how far it could go that a person would suspect himself of being lazy. On this level, I think it'll be too hard for the level of zrizos that he should always, every kul tzricha badika. It doesn't sound like the level of zrizos. It sounds more like the level of precious. So I think that's what he's doing. I think he's just projecting ahead what the level of precious might be. Klal shel davar. To sum it up, the whole issue of zrizos. Here's a gadol tzarech adam l'schazdik l'sgaber b'zrizos lasos hamitzvos. It's necessary for a person to strengthen himself and overpower himself in order to become a zoris, to become an alacritous person, to do the mitzvahs. By throwing off of himself the heaviness of laziness, which is holding him back. That's the issue, that a person has to overhaul, change his makeup in a way that he should become a swift person instead of being a heavy person. This might be like a new paragraph. The angels are praised with this good attribute. Angels are alacritous. They're swift. They're the opposite of heavy. Human beings are heavy. Angels are swift. They're strong, of strength, to do the word of Hashem, to listen to Hashem's word. When Hashem says something, right away they do it. Other psukim that it says about the angels, the chayis HaKodesh, this is a certain high level of angels that they run back and forth like lightning. So that's the level of angels. A person is human, he's a human being, he's not a malach. So you can't expect of him to be the same level of alacrity as an angel. He can't come to the level of an angel. As close as he can get, he should try to become as much of a Zoris as possible. As Zoris, as a swift person. Even though he's not going to come to the epitome would be angelic. But as much as he could as a human being, to push himself to become alacritous and not procrastinate. David Melech praises his lot that he reached that level, that he was swift and hurried he didn't tarry in order to do Hashem's mitzvahs. That's the midah of zrizos, to do things right away, not to procrastinate. And even though the body is naturally heavy, and there's Yetzer Hara that's also trying to compete with him for the mitzvahs, and it's passive, and it's a slow process, and there are excuses that camouflage it, still he overcomes his human nature and becomes swift. There are some other sources, just to bring down some other sources in the Gemara, talks about the Maila of a person who's a Zoris, as we before I brought down that the Zoris, they does mitzvahs as soon as possible. The Gemara says about a chover, somebody who was responsible about Chumas HaMaisros, that there's a chazaka that he took Chumas HaMaisros the same day. Even if he just brought in the tetua,
you should assume that he took her.
He could assume that, and if he died, he could assume that it's Metukan because he would have tied it right away. Even though he didn't know he was going to die, but he still would have tied it right away. Other Gemaras that the Mesillas Yesharim himself is going to bring in the coming parak to give examples of people that were Zrizim. It's interesting that he made it into a level of, that Pinchas Ben Yor, the author of this brayso, made it into a level we would think that Zrizos might be like a nice meat on the side. But not that it's another rung on the ladder. The ladder that's bringing us up higher and higher. To say Zrizos is on that ladder, it would sound like a mila. Not that it's something so inherent in the person's growth, personal growth. But here in the Pinchas Ben Yor, it says that it is. It's something which is a new stage, a different kind of a person who's not a Zoris, a person who is a Zoris. So later on, we're going to see that there's enthusiasm that's included in this issue of Zrizos, and that might be the main issue. That the person who's enthusiastic about the mitzvahs, it's a whole different level. A person can do the mitzvahs, manually he did it, technically, but the question is is his enthusiasm there. So the swiftness has something to do, it's going to be connected to the enthusiasm, which he didn't talk about yet. He'll talk about it later on in the Sefer. So far he just said that the necessity of being a Zoriz is because he might lose out the mitzvahs. Nor of a rake, a person that doesn't go on the path of Zrizos, he's going to be missing out on a lot of opportunity in life. So if we may, we continue to Perek Zayin. Perek 7 is talking about breaking it down. Chelkei Zrizos. So far he just told us in general what it is, to define Zrizos. But now he's going to tell us its different parts. Chelkei Zrizos Shnayim. There are two parts. Zrizos, the midah of Zrizos can be divided into two. Echad kodem eschalas ha'maisa ve'echad la'achrichein. One is before you start doing it, and one is once you started doing it. You mentioned it before. The issue was about finishing it off. He mamish makes it into two parts. I wouldn't have thought of it, but he does say this point, that one is before you start and one is after you started, which means that you didn't finish yet. Now he's going to divide the issue, the parak. Now the first paragraph goes about a page. He's going to talk about the first issue of doing mitzvahs right away, first opportunity, and the second half they talked about finishing it is going to be the next paragraph, about a page on. So he says, not to procrastinate. When a mitzvah comes to him, opportunity to do a mitzvah, he should do it as soon as possible. He shouldn't let it sour. The word yachmitz, don't let it sour. Mitzvah comes to you, don't let it go sour. Ela b'agia zmana o b'zdamna lefanav o ba'alosa b'machshavto yemaher yachish ma'aseh ulechos bo v'lasos oso v'lo yaniach zman l'zman she'yisra b'bintayim yen sakono kesakonoso asher hinei kol רגע שמסחדש יוכל להסחדש איזה עיכוב למעשה הטוב. So he's paraphrasing the Chazal that say mitzvah shebal yotcha al tachmitzena. A mitzvah comes to your hand, don't let it become chametz, don't let it sour, don't let it ferment. So that's the lesson of Pesach also. Pesach you do matzah right away. Bezrizos. Pesach is the symbol of alacrity. But the opposite of chametz, that a person let it stay and it ferments. So that's going to be the problem. The problem is the chametz. So he gives us three scenarios of when alacrity is called for. It means we want me to do a mitzvah right away. What does it mean right away? What's the translation of doing a mitzvah right away? So he says it depends what kind of mitzvah it is. Sometimes there are time-related mitzvahs, time-bound mitzvahs, that before the Zman you weren't able to do it. And then the Zman came, you're able to do it. It comes time for Shachris, let's say. So if Hasikin is going to be Neitzachama, the sunrise is going to be the earliest, so that'll be the earliest that you could do the mitzvah. If it comes time for Mincha, then my Mincha Gedola, whatever it might be, Ma'ariv, the earliest time that you could have Ma'ariv, Seitzak Chavim, or at least Erev, but Plag HaMincha, according to Rabbi Yehuda. Okay, that's why Zman Kriya Shema, I said Seitzak Chavim, but it would be either Plag HaMincha or Erev, and then Seitzak Kriya Shema, Seitzak Chavim. So there's a time-related mitzvahs. So the first issue of where Zrizos comes into play is when it was a time-related mitzvah. As soon as the mitzvah came, the time has arrived, so do it as soon as possible. That would be one issue of Zrizos. But not every mitzvah is time-bound. Some mitzvahs, some don't have to do with a certain time, but it has to do with opportunity. The opportunity wasn't there. It came to you. There was a person who needed a favor, and before he wasn't there, now it came. So again, now the issue comes from now that it arose, the opportunity arose. So you're going to procrastinate and do it right away. That's the second scenario of Zrizos. And the third one is he thought about it. It wasn't time-bound, and it wasn't any kind of opportunity, just he didn't think about it. And then he thought of an idea that he could do a mitzvah. There's some mitzvah that he could do. Nothing was holding him back till now. He just didn't think about it. Now that he thought about it, so do it in the first possible time. So he gives...
So it's a mitzvah to think about it.
He doesn't say that. It could be, but he doesn't say that. His point is Zrizos. Maybe that would be another point. That think about the opportunity to do mitzvahs. What mitzvah could you do? But his point of Zrizos would be don't procrastinate. What?
Even how one can be
productive. But now the point is, after you figured out what to do, so now don't push it off. Don't procrastinate and say, I'll do it later. Do it as soon as possible. So what are the three scenarios? One is when it's a time-bound mitzvah, to do it as soon as the time arrives. Other one is that when the opportunity arrives, not because it's time-bound, that's because it didn't happen until now. Now the opportunity came up. But the third one is that nothing to do with time, nothing to do with opportunity, just I didn't think about it until now. And now that I thought about it, also do it as soon as possible. Because he says that don't leave time to come in between you and the mitzvah, because there's no danger like that every time that elapses, you're in danger of losing the mitzvah. You're in danger of losing it. It might go away. The opportunity might go away. Before you had opportunity, you could have done the mitzvah and then it went away. You didn't have it anymore. So that's his Hagdara so far. He just defined that Zrizus, Kodem Aschalas HaMaisa, Zrizus, ALACRITY, before the act, is that as soon as you have opportunity, do it. Either when it's time, or the opportunity arrives, or you thought about it. Do it as soon as possible, don't procrastinate. Chazal talk about this, they arouse us to this issue as far as the inauguration of Shlomo. Over there the story was that Shlomo's brother was trying to usurp the kingship, Adoniyo ben Chagis, and the complaint was brought to David HaMelech, who was still alive, and David HaMelech said that Shlomo should be the coming king, he should be the one to take over the kingship, and immediately he told his officers to inaugurate him. Inaugurate Shlomo. She'amar David leBenayahu, V'aratem Oso al Gichon. David instructed Benayahu, was the Sar Tzava, I think, take down Shlomo to Gichon, to the river Gichon over there. That was the place where they were going to anoint him. So that, and Benayahu, Amen, King Yom Hashem. So Benayahu said, Amen, so should Hashem should agree. Hashem should decree that Shlomo should be inaugurated. So on this Chazal say, on this pasuk Chazal say, Amar Rabbi Pinchas b'shem Rabbi Yochanan Tzipori, v'lo kvar nemar hinei ben olad l'loch v'yeh ish menucha. What was the problem? Why was David worried? Why did he have to inaugurate him? There was already a nevuah that was said, a son is going to be born to you, and he's going to be a man of peace, and he's going to be the king. So David was already assured that Shlomo was going to be the king. Why did he have to take action to anoint him in his lifetime? On this, Chazal say, Ella harbe kategorin yamdu mikan bad gichon. There are many, what's the word for kategorin? A kategor.
It says impediments.
Impediments. Not a literal translation. Anybody else? Same translation?
Counter claimers.
Usually we would say like the prosecutor, but
prosecutors.
Conspirators.
Okay.
Blockages.
Okay, good. All good. The kategor literally would mean the prosecutor. But it doesn't mean the prosecutor here, probably, unless it means in Shamayim, prosecution in Shamayim. That would be Malachim that would claim
or
that he's not supposed to get it.
Just that there's another brother that's claiming it's a prosecutor there.
So, even once he had the opportunity to do something, to do it as soon as possible, and be worried that there are going to be competitors that are going to try to take it away. Al-Kain is Hiru Zechonim Levrocha Ushmatem as Matzos. Therefore, Chazal warned, watch the matzos. But there's a drasha. Of course, talking about watch the matzah that it shouldn't become chametz. But there's a drasha Ushmatem as mitzvos. The word matzos and mitzvos could be read with the same letters. Matzos, mitzvos. So watch the mitzvos. What are you supposed to watch? That it shouldn't become chametz. How does the mitzvah become chametz? It shouldn't go sour. Mitzvah that comes to your hand, don't let it ferment. And he's not going to bring a list of Chazal that say the importance of doing things right away. Just I heard of a medrash that also brings out the point that I think Rashi brings down in the Navi, when David had the idea of building the Beis HaMikdash, so he asked Nasan HaNavi if it's the right thing to do, and Nasan said yes. He said it on his own without prophecy, just because he thought it was a good idea, and said yes, it's a great thing, and he encouraged him to do it. And that night Hashem came to Nasan HaNavi and told him, tell David to stop, tell David not. He's not the one supposed to do it. He's not the one who's going to build the Beis HaMikdash. His son is going to, but tell him right away. So Rashi points out over there, probably Hashem named in the Medrash, why was it necessary for Hashem to come to him that very same night? Why was the rush?
Because David was going to do it right away.
Because David can do it right away. Hashem didn't want David to exert himself for nothing, that it wasn't going to happen. So, and how would you say? Hashem says, I know this man. Right. I heard this message from Rabbi Avrohom Miller, I think afterwards I saw it inside, that Hashem says, I know this man. If he's doing it, he's going to, by tomorrow, who knows what's going to be done already. So he didn't want him to exert himself for nothing. So Hashem told him the very next morning to tell him not to do it. So you see the midah of zrizus, that a person who, once he got the idea, over there also was the idea. It wasn't the time bound, and it wasn't because of something that happened. Just he got the idea to do it.
The Rebbe was giving testimony as to
his zrizus,
the attributes of David.
Another example, another place where Chazal, the source, where Chazal say the importance and the necessity, the chashivas of doing something as soon as possible. It talks about the two daughters of Lot. The two daughters of Lot. They thought they had relations with their father, which is a degrading thing. But the Gemara says they had a good intention. They thought that, like the pasuk says, that everything was Tohu vavohu, the whole world was destroyed. They didn't realize there was only those particular cities, and therefore they thought that there's not going to be any continuation of mankind. So they weren't going to be able to be married anymore. So they decided that the right thing to do is to have relations with their father, and therefore they made him drunk and they had relations, even though it was an avera. The Gemara calls it like an avera lishma, since they had a good intention. According to their knowledge, they did the right thing. So much so that they even got reward for it. They got reward for what they did, even though it was a technical avera, incest. But since they had a good intention under the circumstances, so they were even rewarded for it. Not only that, but even the older one, the older of the two daughters, since she was makadim, she went first, so she was zocha to a bigger reward. The fact that she was a zoris, the zrizos, was zrizim makdim le mitzvah. So it was an avera, but since they thought it was a mitzvah, so zrizim makdim le mitzvah. And the fact that she came first to our father to have relations, the first night, and only the second night did the younger one. So she was merited that her descendant will come into Am Yisrael 4 generations before her younger sister had descendants who came into Am Yisrael. So you have from Moab, Moab was the son of the older daughter, so the descendant was David. And Rus. Eventually David. Yeah. But Rus came out of Moab. And from the younger sister, Ammon, came out Nama. Ammon is who married Shlomo. So from Rus until Nama was 4 generations. And Moab, the older daughter, her descendants came into Am Yisrael 4 generations before her younger sister, because she did it earlier, the first night. So that is a schus of, you see the merit, the chashivas of doing a mitzvah as soon as possible. Amru, another Gemara is reason the mitzvahs. The Gemara we brought out in the beginning, in the previous parak, that there's reason they go to do the mitzvah as soon as possible. Amru, a person should run to do a mitzvah even on Shabbos. Means on Shabbos you're not supposed to run. It's also to run on Shabbos, like a weekday walk, a weekday kind of act. But if you're doing it for a mitzvah, you are allowed to. Just a side point, that I think that the running the Gemara is talking about is not what we call running, because adults usually don't run, only for an emergency. But what does it mean that you should not run on Shabbos, or that you should run to a mitzvah? So I think that the running here is talking about the way people walk on a business street, a business-like way. Even if you're not running, like we'd say jogging, we're not running, but the fact that a person walks not like he's in a park. There's a way of walking when you're going on Friday night. You see people coming home from shul, no one's in a rush, have hands behind their back, and they're going slowly, like on the Bnei Chorin. And you have the people that are on Rehov Malchei Yisrael on a weekday. Everyone's coming and going fast. So that's a weekday walk. So the Gemara says you're not supposed to have a weekday walk on Shabbos. But when you're going to do a mitzvah, then you should. You shouldn't go casually to do a mitzvah. You should go hurriedly, quickly. And I don't think it means to actually run, what we call running, but it means to go hurriedly, the way you do to an important meeting. So too, he's saying that this is, and even on Shabbos, even he's supposed to be hurried, swift to do a mitzvah, even on Shabbos. Usually people they say a joke with Bali Musar, not a joke, but when you see a person running to shul, it's usually because he's late.
Or they're making kiddush stuff.
So this is the point of running. I'm saying not running, but to go swiftly the way you would as an important issue is happening. So too, a person should run to a mitzvah. That's the issue of zrizos. But Medrash Amru, who yinagenu almus. A person could be say once a week, who yinagenu almus. So the person means Hashem will lead us in olam haba almus. What's almus? So it's a strange, not a usual word. Some say that it means forever, alaka olam, laolam, forever. Some say that it means until death, ad maves, until death. But the drash says, bizrizos kileinu lemta. The word almus could be also read alamos, young girls. Young girls are called alma. Hinei alma harav yoledes bein. Alma means a young girl, young woman. Over there it's talking about girls. The person calls alamos means girls. Tofefos means drummers, girls that are drumming. Over there it's talking about the fact that I don't really recall. I think maybe by Kriyas Yamsuf.
Miriam?
Tehillim Samaches. I don't recall offhand. Maybe let's see the pasuk a second. Tehillim Samaches.
Miriam and her band?
I'm not sure if that's. I'm not sure. 1 second. Tehillim Samaches. I think so. Like you said, that by Kriyas Yamsuf. Kid Mushor Machar Nognim, Besochal Amos Tofefos. I imagine it's talking about Sham Ben Yamin Sa'ir, Rodem, Sarai Yehuda Brik Masam. The Gemara says this is talking about Kriyas Yamsuf, maybe on a drash level. But Besochal Amos Tofefos amongst drumming girls that are drumming. So the word Alamos means a young girl. What else does it say the word Alma? Does it say that by Moshe? It says Alma. Yeah. So a young girl is called Alma. So the word Alamos is translated to be a young girl. What does it mean? Hashem will lead us in Olam Haba like young girls. What does that mean? Young girls are a symbol for enthusiasm and energy. What is that? Alacrity, that's good. Yeah, you got it on the button. The alacrity is a attribute of perfection, a great midah of perfection, that the person's nature holds it back from him. In our world, it's not natural that a person should be alacritous. A person who overpowers, strengthens himself, and grabs it as much as he could, in the future he's going to merit to have the midah of zrizos. What's going to be zrizos in Olam Haba? The Creator, blessed be He, is going to give it to him in his reward, in reward, in turn of what he worked for it in this world, during the Zman Avoda. So it's an interesting, very interesting point, that Mamish is an addition to what we learned before. Before, in the previous parak, he spoke about the importance of zrizos, that a person should be alacritous. He said the point is that he shouldn't lose out on the mitzvahs. If a person is going to be procrastinating and lazy, so he's going to miss out on a lot. He's going to be near of a rake, he'll be missing out on mitzvahs. That was the whole point he said over there. The whole issue was he shouldn't lose out on mitzvahs. Here he says that there's going to be an issue of a person being a zaris in Olam Haba. In Olam Haba there are no mitzvahs. There's no mitzvahs to do in Olam Haba. What's he being alacritous about in Olam Haba? And Olam Haba is going to be the place of schar. It's going to be the place of reward. Over there it means that he shouldn't be fashlofen. He shouldn't be in the reward. He's going to be it is going to be the excitement of going from one reward to another reward. There's going to be a lot of action over there. But there's an added point over here that it says that it's a shleimus. Rizos he made the shleimus gadol, that a person, even though he doesn't, if he works for it as much as he works for it in this world, he's going to get it in Olam Haba. That's a new point. That Zrizos is a midah of shleimus, not because only it brings on you don't lose out the mitzvahs. Before he just said a technicality that you can lose out on the mitzvahs. Here he's saying a different point, that it's a shleimus. It's a midah of shleimus be'etzem, that a person really, it's a mila to be a shalem, to be a zariz, and that's really could have been included in the parak before, that there's a midah be'etzem, inherently a good midah of being alacritous. I think that the point is going to be hanging on what he says. We're going to stop here, but what he's going to say coming up in the parak is that zrizos has to do with enthusiasm. When is a person zariz? When does he do things right away? Because he's enthusiastic about it. If it's just manually pushing himself, it's not the real midah of zrizos. Zrizos is that he does things with enthusiasm. The point being in Olam Haba that he's going to be doing his whole movement in Olam Haba is going to be enthusiastic. Over there it's going to be an issue of reward. Here's the issue of avoda. But both of them are the same point, that he's full of energy, energetic, alacritous, zrizos. And I think we could make a cross-reference that when in the earlier parak, when he speaks about the mila of being a zariz, not only is it in order not to lose out on the mitzvahs, but it's be'etzem. It's inherently a shleimus that a person acquires this midah of zrizos, and Hashem's, and if he, as much as he works for it in this world, even though he said earlier that a person can't become the epitome of it because he's human, he's not an angel, but he's going to get in the reward of what he tried to do in this world. Hashem is going to give it to him as a present in the world to come. Yashikach.
Thank you.